And Andrew, the Prime Minister's had a series of conversations with world leaders, including President Trump today, and there's a lot of discussion about how to prevent this sort of pandemic from happening again.
That's right. So the Prime Minister is lobbying world leaders for reform of the World Health Organisation and more transparency from that organisation to, as you say, Kieran, make sure this never happens again. He spoke to Donald Trump, he's spoken to Germany's Angela Merkel and France's Emmanuel Macron. And interesting, in his conversation with Angela Merkel, apparently he was warned by the Chancellor about the risk of easing restrictions, or be careful with that in terms of the health outcomes. Germany's often been put, as we've reported, Kieran, as a bit of a model case. Not as good as Australia, by the way, but in terms of having a low death rate and dealing effectively with the crisis, lots of testing. He also had a conversation with Bill Gates, the billionaire. Now, Gates thanked the PM for not going harder against the WHO because of all the good work they are doing in developing countries. But both Gates and Trump spoke to the PM about concerns around the Pacific. And I know this is a particular focus of the PM, isn't it, Kieran?
It sure is. And as you've said, Andrew, he has reiterated a number of times how important the WHO is on the ground in the Pacific. So on the ground, at that level, it's working. At the top level, not so much. Andrew, we'll talk to you next hour. Thanks so much. And as Andrew said, those conversations are happening as a diplomatic stoush was broken out with China over the origins and handling of the virus. Let's go live to our political reporter, Trudy McIntosh. And Trudy, the call for transparency by Peter Dutton, among others, including the Prime Minister, but Peter Dutton's been the focus of the ire from Beijing.
Yeah, Kieran, this is another sign of that inherent tension that does seem to exist at the moment with Australia's largest trading partner. This is the second day in a row that Beijing has taken aim squarely at senior Morrison government ministers for their comments about the need for transparency over the handling of this coronavirus crisis and how the outbreak first began in Wuhan. We've seen today pushback from comments that were made by Peter Dutton late last week. He was pretty strong in his forthright remarks, really, about China's activities on a number of fronts, but really zeroing in on their handling of the virus. Have a look at the comments which have drawn the ire of Beijing.
Look at the loss overseas. All of those families would demand answers and transparency, and I don't think it's too much to ask of. It would certainly be demanded of us. I think it is incumbent upon China to answer those questions and to provide the information so that people can have clarity about exactly what happened, because we don't want it to be repeated.
And we've seen this strong pushback from the Chinese embassy here in Australia today. They are accusing the Home Affairs Minister of parroting comments that have come out of the Trump administration when it comes to this. A spokesman for the embassy has said, quote, that Mr Dutton must have received some orders from Washington requiring him to cooperate in the US propaganda war against China. Now, the Home Affairs Minister's office is refusing to comment on that today, not wanting to get into this tit-for-tat war with China. But there have been strong pushback this morning from the Treasurer, who was asked about this.
Well, I think they were unwanted and unjustified comments. And what is clear is that we maintain a good relationship at the commercial level with China. They're our largest trading partner, and we want that to continue. We obviously have some differences.
So, Kieran, the Treasurer there saying Australia remains a close relationship on the commercial level. As for that mutual trust, it doesn't look like that's going to return anytime soon. And any prospect of Australia being out of that diplomatic deep freeze also doesn't look on the horizon.